Let's do this.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Hi, Johan.
Hello.
What's on your table?
The planet.
Yeah, right. We had to make sure that we can touch people, give hope, but also lead the industry to a more sustainable future. And of course also financially, so that we stay resilient.
Whether we like it or not, we have to admit that now we're forced as scientists to pose the question, are we at risk of destabilizing the planet? To begin with, we have just 10 years now to turn things around. We need to cut global emissions by half, and we need to halt biodiversity loss. And simply, it's like having this oil tanker running at full speed in the wrong direction, and we have to not only pull the brakes, but turn 90 degrees on a completely new trajectory. And now is the time to recognize that there's no longer enough to do some little corporate social responsibility here, or have some environmental projects here, or feel good that we have some positive success on the margins. Now is the time to go big, because now is the time to become fully sustainable. And that's where I think that for a company like H&M, because you're such a big player globally, I mean, you have so many ripple effects just by your presence. The circular model, I think, is quite frankly is the future. Yeah. For essentially all sectors actually, but certainly for the textile industry, not only because it's the only way to align with the stability of the planet, but also because I foresee that will be the only way to make money. I mean, to really make net income.
We have also found that when setting our own targets, like on climate, for example, 2040, it should be climate positive. It's a difference from setting such a goal. It's not about doing less harm. It's about turning it into something
fundamentally good.
But of course, when you set these kind of long-term targets, you need to also do some sub-goals so that you see, what's the next step? Otherwise, you would think somebody else will fix that. And it's the same with biodiversity and commitments that we have made, that we want to have a positive impact. And that gives a totally different energy, obviously, and a different kind of urgency to the whole question. The key is that circularity will bring profitability, otherwise it's not sustainable at all. But I truly believe that's the future. That's kind of, at least for me, the solution to the decoupling.
No, it's not only the solution. It's on the long term. It's a necessity for the decoupling. And the drama is that we've been for so long allowed ourselves to do the completely wrong thing. I mean, to have these linear production models where we just exploit for free, add value, sure, make profit, sure, have economic growth, sure, but then create waste, which then pollutes and creates problems downstream. And this linear model in all sectors need to be broken simply because we're hitting the limits of the capacity of the planet.
I do think that where we have a sense of urgency, that's to move much faster. And how can we do that? Because we're dependent on different techniques to be there. We have to change the supply chain if it's going to be fully circular. So there's a lot more to do, where I think the pace that we've had in the past cannot be the pace that we have in the future.
No.
We can't really wait for everybody's awareness, because it's so much more urgency in this question. So how can we be part of influencing customer behaviors, which is also responsibility or an opportunity, whatever way you see it, that we have because of our size?
We need to define growth in a way that internalizes all the natural capital. Let's not focus on gross national product or kind of the gross growth. Let's focus on the net income that we make. You know that better than anyone in the business world, that the net income, you of course have your income or your profit and deduct all the costs. But in those costs, you have to include all the natural capital as well. All the resources that you're taking out from the biosphere has to be valued in a way that gives you a better sense of where you are in terms of true net profit.
We also need to look at how do we diversify the different revenue streams. So the renting we have started with, or fixing broken garments, or looking at these kind of different business models. That's a different way of finding revenue streams that are more kind of circular in themselves, or kind of make sense when decoupling growth from the use of natural resources. But for us, it's really about doing it faster, changing our core, and also looking at new type of growth.
But then also on your point about decoupling, I mean, I think it's that's the holy grail for the world, to be able to show that we can have good economic development while reducing the negative impacts.
Yes.
The problem is, as you know, that when you look at the experience, not many have succeeded. In fact, a country like Sweden has decoupled officially, but that's only because we are importing so much of our consumer goods.
Right.
With the COVID-19 crisis, this is the moment to fully integrate health, sustainability with the social justice side.
When I see who's suffering most, at least with my perspective, looking at the business of the H&M Group, that's obviously the production countries. It becomes so clear how everything is connected.
Yeah, exactly.
That you can't talk about sustainability only as the planet or environmental questions. What can be our role in a situation like this? When we close, demand goes down, they get out of job, they have limited social security. How can we come together and be part of solving that in a good way?
I find that that we're faced with two challenges. I mean, one is the social justice challenge, that now that we are such a big world on such a small planet, we have to share the remaining space on Earth in an equitable way. Where, of course, fundamentally, it's about how much atmosphere can we consume, how much fresh water, how much. I mean, that's one justice. But you're right that the other one is really. So how do we secure that people have, some safety nets in life?
Yes. And what's so important for us is that we are seen as a company that walk the talk.
Science concludes we need radical transformation, but the political leadership in the world at large is very much on incremental change still. So there's a mismatch.
Right.
We need people like you saying that, yes, I will rise to this challenge, but I will also make it something that makes it profitable for us.
Yes.
I think the only way to succeed is that citizens, science, policy, and business all hold hands and are moving in the same direction. Now the problem is that symphony is not playing, a joint tune at all. So right now we're seeing that the political leadership is certainly lagging behind, and science and business is many steps ahead. If the policies are not in place to set the leveling playing field, so that you as a CEO in a company know that this is what I'm competing against in a fair way, then of course it won't work. So by the end of the day, we need policy.
I think supply and demand, also when thinking about making your own business more sustainable, that's absolutely key. And it's so basic that most people don't even think about that as something sustainable. But obviously that is to make sure that what you produce, you sell. So it's about the overstock. It's about that whole situation. And today there's so many more tools than there used to be. And you have AI that can help you in understanding what is the demand so that you kind of get it right for the customers. It's less that you have to choose either or, like should I focus on getting better hit rates, supply and demand, or should I focus on the circularity part? You simply have to say, both. I do the and.
We've allowed ourselves to think of the planet as something stable, something infinitely large, with endless resources that can just be delivering natural capital into the value chain, and then we have simply just trod along. And now, by just having a radical rethink to say, okay, everything we do has to occur within a safe space on Earth. Everything we do has to stay within science-based targets. Everything we do has to be within a carbon budget, a water budget, a biodiversity budget. And that sounds quite straightforward when you say it the first time, but then when you start thinking, what does it mean? What does it imply? Then you say, oh my God, it tells you that the planet's boundaries are non-negotiable, and then we succeed inside that space. That's, to me, what would be a radical rethink.
Where do you see the light, and where do you see that things are actually happening overall?
We in the scientific community have never been so on demand by business to provide strategic guidance. It's like businesses have come to realize that science provides a kind of insider information. This is where the planet is heading. That should be where the market is heading, and that is a light to me. It's a big light, actually. Sector by sector, be it in food or energy or textile or transport, we see that sustainable solutions exist, are scalable, and are competitive. There are many lights out there. The key is to water them so that they can grow very fast. And that is that's the challenge right now. And where do you see hope?
If we can transition ourselves and kind of change the system behind fashion and design, the movement that we could create, again with the young generation, showing that it's not about only fashion, there's something more. And if I then think about potential partnerships with parties and companies that comes with the same values, and the movement we could create, especially with the young generation, that gives me a lot of hope. That's when I feel, wow, we can truly have an impact. We have a lot of things to do to make that possible, but we are one of those players that can create that type of hope for millions of people out there. That makes me feel very passionate.